One is Enough by Flora Nwapa. Chapter 7. Amaka, you should have warned me that you were going to have so many visitors. I was so embarrassed. They were in the bedroom now, and the maid had finished for the day and gone home. Amaka did not like the idea of maids living in. She preferred to live alone. She was an alone sort of person. Crowds scared her. She was most happy staying with a gathering of friends and relations. That was why the Cash Madam Club did not appeal to her when her sister Ayo asked her to join.
I am sorry, Izu. Adobe phoned last night and told me that she was coming. There was no way of informing you. Your instructions, remember, were that I must not under any circumstances phone you. As for the Alhaji, he dropped in as usual. I have told you about him. Sit down and I will get you some fried fish and beer.
Amaka soon came back with the fish and beer.
Where did you park the car? She asked.
The usual place. The little boy is watching it. He earns 2 naira for doing that. He is a delightful boy and I am thinking of getting him into school. He reminds me of my boyhood. I haven't told you about myself, Amaka. I want to tell you tonight. You remember your question when I was introduced to you as Reverend Father Mclaid?
I remember very well,
said Amaka. She had changed into her nightie and was lying on the bed. Father Mclaid went and lay beside her.
But I want you now, Izu. You can tell me afterwards, please.
He kissed her and began to caress her. Much later, as they lay entangled, Mclaid continued. As I was saying, that little boy reminds me of my boyhood. I come from a village in Ogu, where twins are frowned upon even now. My mother was the second wife of my father.
Your mother is dead?
Amaka asked. Just listen to my story, darling, he said, caressing her lovingly and gently. Unfortunately for her, she gave birth to twins, both girls. The villagers got hold of the twins and killed them. She was broken-hearted. For a long time, she was not pregnant. She resigned herself to fate. She felt she was going to have another set of twins if she became pregnant again. So she avoided my father. But my father loved her dearly. He took her in and spoke to her, demanding that she should see reason, that it was the tradition of the land that twins must be thrown away. He told her that he had no power to go against the law of the land. My mother was not comforted. Then one day, a friend visited her and persuaded her to go to church with her. She went along. She liked the church and she continued to go until she got baptized in the Roman Catholic Church at Ogu. In a short time, the sisters came along and established a maternity hospital in our village. My mother was one of the women who worked hard to see that it was established. Through an interpreter, she told the sisters about the inhuman practices of the killing of twins. She herself persuaded mothers to have their babies in the maternity hospital. But it did seem that there was something in our village that encouraged the birth of twins. More than 30% of mothers who came to the hospital had twins. They were afraid and many abandoned their babies there. Some women took the male or female, depending on which they had more need of at the material time. Other mothers who were a bit more enlightened fed one and left one to die of hunger. It is unbelievable that this practice still goes on today. The most recent one I was told of was a teenage girl who, afraid that she would have twins, went to the bush when she was in labor and actually had twins. She abandoned the male and took the female to a maternity hospital in Enugu. Later, she was accused of murder, but when she told her story, the good female magistrate was sympathetic, set her free, and condemned the inhuman practice. The maternity hospital did a lot for mothers who gave birth to twins. When the villagers knew that a mother had twins and that the Reverend Sisters were protecting her and her twins, they made life very difficult for the family. When my mother saw that the sisters were saving twins, she became more relaxed and so became pregnant again. But she had made many enemies in her campaign against the custom, and the people lay in wait to pounce on her if she gave birth to the offensive twins. My mother told me that she prayed night and day that God should not give her twins. She solicited the prayers of the good Reverend sisters, but something told her that she was going to have twins and that the people would kill them. She had this premonition, and pray as she did, it worried her. The sisters told her it would be all right and that she did not need to fear, but she was afraid. The day came, the Reverend sisters were there to deliver her. It was a difficult birth. She cried and cried. She was going to have twins. God let her not have twins. God, please. She gave birth to twins, me and my sister. My sister died 24 hours later, and 2 days later, my mother died. I became the property of the Roman Catholic Church. The Reverend sisters brought me up, and the Reverend Father Mclaid, who was in charge of the parish, gave me my name, Francis Ignatius Mclaid, and adopted me. None of my relatives came forward to claim me. I was taboo. I would bring them ill luck, so it was good riddance that a white missionary had adopted me. They were a strange lot, claiming what should be thrown away. I lived with a priest. I served Mass. I was going to be a priest like the good father who brought me up, who gave me life. Nothing else appealed to me. I was alone in the world. The father was quite old. If anything happened to him, I would have no roots, nothing at all. Then came the coup. I was in the seminary then. It was a great shock. I was regarded in the seminary as one of the Irish priests, so they spoke freely when I was around. They took the coup quite seriously and made plans. They prayed and hoped that the upheaval in the country would not turn into a shooting war. Father Mclaid, my adopted father, was seriously upset. For one thing, he had regarded himself as a Nigerian and had no wish to return home to Ireland. He prayed the hardest. The war started and Nsukka evacuated. Father Mclaid had gone there to see what was going on, to have first-hand information. He refused to leave when the civilians were being evacuated. He was still praying when the Nigerian troops captured him and sent him to Lagos. The Irish High Commissioner reprimanded him and sent him home to Ireland. In Ireland, he was like a fish out of water. He just could not settle down. He missed me and missed Biafra. As God would have it, he heard of the delegation from Biafra, headed by a very prominent civil servant who retired some years before. He was prominent in the Roman Catholic Church as well, and he had been knighted by the Pope. My father was pleased, and he, together with some other Irish priests and nuns who were in Biafra, were asked to meet them and help them clear the way to be received by the Irish government. I was in this delegation, and it was a very happy reunion for us both. I don't know why I was chosen in fact, but I think the bishop understood my plight and felt I should join my adopted father in his home. So I went as the delegation's secretary. It was impossible for us to meet anyone in the British government and in the Irish Republic. The government had made up their minds that they were not going to interfere in the internal affairs of Nigeria. Whatever help that was coming from Britain, Ireland, and elsewhere would be purely individual and non-governmental. Recognition of Biafra and nearly 85% of our population as adherents of the Roman Catholic Church notwithstanding. There was nothing our delegation could do other than appeal to these organizations on humanitarian grounds to send food and clothing to the suffering masses of Biafra. Father Mclaid was disappointed and heartbroken. When we returned home, it took us 2 whole weeks to see our head of state to report on our mission. The civil servants would not make the appointment. That was my first encounter with the Biafran civilian servants. Going abroad was so easy. Within 24 hours of briefing by the head of state, we were airborne. Now nobody was anxious to know the outcome of our mission. I was sorry for the elderly knight and the way he was treated, but could do nothing. But he was a patient man and he calmly waited. Eventually we saw the head of state and gave our report. Whether he was impressed or not, we did not know, but we accomplished one thing. Caritas and the World Council of the Church began to fly in food, medicine, and clothing to Biafra. I was not happy at the way these commodities were distributed. Things got out of hand, and just when I was thinking of joining the fighting soldiers to fight for Biafra, a message from my father came through Caritas. I should go immediately to Dublin. In Dublin, my father lay dying in hospital. I just made it before he died. "My son," he said, "I am glad you have come to see me die. Soon this war will end and you will be back to the usual routine." Nigeria is different from Ireland in many ways. Many of us went into the other because there was nothing else to do. It is not so in your developing country. I should have given you a different kind of education if I had given a thought to it at the time. You would have belonged more to your people. Now you are neither here nor there. You have your own conscience. You should work out your own salvation. If you in future feel that you have not done the right thing, that you are in the wrong vocation or profession, let your conscience guide you. You owe me nothing. You will feel free to live your life the way you think fit. I absolve you of all guilt so that my memory does not haunt you. If I had had my way, if I could live my life all over again, I would have married and had a son like you. And Amaka had been completely absorbed in Izu's story. It was now dark in the bedroom, and she switched on the light. Izu was crying. She said nothing. She went to the toilet, got a clean towel, and wiped his tears away. She caressed him. She touched him in forbidden places, and he was aroused. They made love again. Amaka had succeeded in tempting him as she said she would. She was going to play her cards very well. It was the first time in her life that she had planned a total annihilation of a man, using all that her mother taught her, which she had sadly neglected because the spinster missionaries had taught otherwise. When it was all over, Izu began again. When we buried my father, I stayed on in Dublin. I had no wish to return to Biafra. To keep my sanity, I worked hard. I tried to write but could not. I needed inner peace to do that. I had plenty of time on my hands. It was peace I needed, but I could not find peace. What was left for me in the world was the church, the priest, and the nuns, and of course my God. There were no relations. Many of my village people had believed that I was dead. In fact, it was said after the death of my mother that the twins died. So as far as my community was concerned, I was a non-person. The war raged on, and our Zeke came to Europe and made a speech asking Biafrans to lay down their arms. I welcomed that appeal. There was at least someone who was appealing to our people to stop the war so that our men, women and children would stop dying. It was pathetic for me to hear a Biafran youth, on being asked by a journalist why he was fighting, reply that he was fighting to stop Nigeria from killing them. Volunteers were needed to join Zeke in his mission to Nigeria. I volunteered and joined the delegation. That was why I was in Nigeria before the war ended. I worked in army circles. I visited soldiers in the barracks and their trenches. I ministered to their bodies and their souls. I was liked by both the soldiers and their families. I stuck to my name, Mclaid. Nobody knew I was from Biafra except, of course, Zeke and the administrator of the East Central State, because I worked closely with each of them at one time or another. No matter how hard I worked, there was this restlessness, this inner tumult which persisted. And even when the war ended, the restlessness continued. I was not altogether innocent during my time in the seminary, I must say, but it was difficult to pinpoint the problem. I made friends with families, and when the war ended, I came in closer contact with those who had been in Biafra. Your friend and her husband were good to me, and their house used to be a kind of sanctuary for me. Then it happened, the day I set my eyes on you in Adobe's home, and the pain and longing afterwards, and now this. You and I here in the flesh having an affair, a priest having an affair with a married woman. Has it occurred to you that you could be pregnant? You did not tell me that day that though the gynecologist had said that there was no possibility of you ever becoming pregnant, that you felt you would one day have a child. I too believe in miracles. Let's not talk about that now, Izu.
You do not realize what you have done to me since we first met. Apart from the contracts and the money involved and all that, you have made me feel like a woman again. I had failed in practically all my relationships with men until I met you, and at the right time, so to say. I know what I am doing, but cannot help myself. I cannot admit this to anybody, and I don't think you would either, knowing our different positions. All I know right now is that I love to be with you as we are now, to love and cherish you. I live for today, only God can take care of tomorrow. If you feel guilty about us at any time, please say so. If the relationship is involving you too much and you want a break, all you need to do is to tell me plainly. But please don't, when you are tired of my company, begin to make excuses. This would hurt me more. I will still have pleasant memories of you if you tell me the truth. I am not young and I have seen a lot and gone through a lot, so nothing really shocks me in that sense. I would bear a truth said truthfully than a lie given deceitfully, and no more. Get me more of that fish and beer. I must go home now. Amaka went off to get the fish and the beer. Izu got dressed quickly and looked at the time. It was past 10 o'clock. Amaka brought the food and drink and set the tray on the stool. She asked Izu where he was going. "Oh, perhaps you can get dressed and see whether my car is there." Amaka dashed out frightened. If his car was stolen, then the truth would come out. People would begin to ask questions, and then the car was there. The boy was still there. Other boys had joined him, but he did not give them the name of the owner of the car. "If you stay with me, the owner will give us money when he comes," said the boy. Izu did not go just then. As he drank the beer, they talked business. Amaka was to go to the brigade headquarters in the morning, where she would meet a brigadier who would give her her next contract papers. All it entailed was 25% of the profit. Amaka was there in the morning, got the contract paper, and nearly swooned. ₦500,000 worth of contract for building a wall round some barracks. She was a go-getter. She went to the barracks and was astonished to see that the job had been done. The wall had been erected. Perhaps she made a mistake, so she went back to the brigadier, but he was not in, so she told someone who was there. He told her that she must be foolish to talk in that way. She should just send her bill for payment. Was she the only one who did not know what was going on? If she had met the brigadier, he would just take the contract paper from her and give it to another person. Amaka was paid ₦500,000 within 4 weeks. 25% of it was hers. Amaka had finally arrived. She would now go to Onitsha, see her mother, pay back the dowry, and come back to Lagos. Perhaps she would go abroad, tune herself up, see a gynecologist, and have a really good holiday. No, she must first buy a house so she could join the Cash Madam Club. Why not? So she hunted for a house but saw none. But she could build a house on the site as she had said she would. Now that it was difficult to buy one in Surulere, she would start building her own. Just a beautiful bungalow with 3 bedrooms would do and plenty of grounds. There was a friend of the Reverend Father who was selling his newly bought Peugeot 504. She got it for next to nothing. Izu helped her to get an architect who designed a bungalow for her, and in under 3 months, her house was ready and she was set to go home to Onitsha. When she got back to Lagos, she would see whether she could manage going abroad, but first things must be done first. If she could not, then she would go next year, but she must see Adobe and Ayo before traveling home. Ayo was as usual with her circle of friends. They were going to have a big do shortly, and they were discussing what they would wear. As cash madams, they would be different. They had branches all over Nigeria, and since this outing was taking place in Lagos, the members outside would hire a plane. They were not going to allow the Nigerian Airways to mess up their outing. They had prepared for it, and it must come off well. Ayo knew the Nigerian Airways officials through her permanent secretary lover.
She would go to him to make the necessary arrangement. It was quite easy. Ayo maintained a very good relationship with the father of her children. She still had her children living with her because the legal wife could not bear to set eyes on either of them or Ayo. Ayo kept her distance. What else did she want from her lover that she hadn't got? The plane was arranged, and just as they were discussing what to wear, Amaka came in, chauffeur-driven. "Yes, I was told you had bought a car. Congratulations," one cash madam said. "It's second-hand," Amaka said, playing down the whole thing. "Second-hand indeed. The car is brand new, Amaka. You are doing very well in Lagos. Congratulations," another woman said. "The trouble with my young sister is that she plays everything down. I tell her to talk big, that you are not recognized in Nigeria today if you are modest. If you make a profit of 2,000 naira, say you made 20,000, people will respect you and give you more contracts. Is there ever a thing people are asked to get together and declare how much they have in the bank? Never. There is no such time. So, Amaka, when you go home to Mama and they come to drink to the new car, don't tell them it is second-hand. Of course, nobody talks of a second-hand car these days, but a used car. You must let people know that you are doing well, and of course you are doing well." Now, she turned to the ladies. "My sister would like to join us in our club. She now lives in a house of her own." "Sis, please not yet. I have not moved yet. I still have to buy the furniture and all that, and..." "What was I telling you? Modesty will kill you. Allow me to finish. Ladies, she came to Lagos a year ago and she has completed a bungalow and is about to move in, and she does not consider it a big achievement. Listen to me. You have done very well, my sister. There are women like you who were here during the war and did contract work, but are still living in one room, a rented room, in Yaba and Ebutameta and even at Jegunle. So just allow me. You have arrived and you are now eligible to join our club. The fee is only 500 naira. We have our meetings every first Saturday in the month. We have our constitution. We are about to have an outing in Lagos next month, which will be the talk of the town for a long time. So pay up." Amaka opened her bag and gave her a check for 500 naira. "Cross it," her sister said, and she did so. "This is an exclusive club, and I am not the one to mess up accounts." "Great!" the women shouted and welcomed her to their Cash Madam club. They ate and drank champagne, and Amaka felt like one of them. Later, she drove to Adobe's place. At Adobe's home, Mike was gardening, and Adobe was in the bedroom with their little daughter. Mike stopped his work and welcomed Amaka with open arms. He was no longer jealous of her. His wife had won him over and made him start thinking of retirement rather than thinking all the time about his job. "Yes, Adobe said you had bought a car. Congratulations." "Thank you. A brand new one at 8,000 naira. She lied. She was learning fast. Wasn't that what her sister had taught her? The car had cost her only about 4,000 naira. "We must celebrate. Adobe, calm down. Your friend is here," Mike called. Adobe came down quickly and embraced Amaka. She had been able to do a contract for both of them and had given Adobe 2,000 naira. Adobe had bought a piece of land at Ikeja and was planning to start building without a word to her husband. Meanwhile, her husband had applied for a piece of land in Victoria Island and hoped for the best. He had also filled in the forms for buying a house at the Festac village. Adobe brought out a bottle of whiskey and gave it to her husband, who opened it and poured some drinks. The driver opened the bonnet and boot of the car, and drops of whiskey were poured in from the bottle. "We ask for God's blessings," Mike said. "We ask God's mercy. Amaka, to your health. Goodness will follow your footsteps. In this great city of Lagos, where fortunes are made, where fortunes are unmade. Lagos that makes and Lagos that unmakes. Your sojourn in Lagos has been a blessing to you and to your friends. May your cup never dry. And this car, these 4 wheels, will take you safely wherever you go. No enemies will bar the way. When enemies are in front, may you be behind. When enemies are behind, may you be in front. You will go safely and return safe. Then he turned to the driver and spoke sternly to him. How long have you been a driver? 5 years, the driver lied. Let me see your driving license. The driver brought out his driving license. But you told me you had driven for 5 years. Yes, sir, I have driven for 5 years. When did you get your license? Oh, last year, but I had driven for 4 years without a license. Can you drive a car to Onitsha? I can, sir. I have driven many times to Onitsha. Mike turned to Amaka. Watch him and never be soft with him. Never allow him to use your car carelessly. They went inside to eat and to celebrate the purchase of Amaka's Peugeot 504.